in the water, making sure that you're not rounded or flexing the spine, or that you're flexing the pelvis. In order to have good posture in the water, you want to be able to move your spine, so not just your head. I see that a lot. People are trying to get horizontal in the water, and they'll try to do things with their head when it really needs to come from the spine and from the pelvis. So today I want to talk about the difference between your hips sinking in the water and your legs sinking in the water. So it's very possible to have your hips up and have your head to your tailbone horizontal in the water, and then your legs could be dropping down. So even though you may not have a very productive kick that's actually helping you propel forward, you can still have your hips up. So again, that comes back to just having your chest or your spine in a neutral position and your pelvis not in a rounded position, so that you're kind of slouching in the water, and not making the move of trying to keep your hips up but trying to move your head. So practicing cat and cow to get that sense of moving the hips and the spine and keeping the head in neutral position are great. Doing the ball float in the water.
So starting with a simple float, I'm in flexion. My goggle strap is vertical, so my head is down. I transition into extension, so pressing the chest down and pressing the hips up. The hips are up, but the legs are still sinking down. Okay, but I can add a little flutter kick, and that brings the legs up. So I know how to separate this action through the spine and through the pelvis to help keep the hips up. If I stop kicking, or get a breath and then start again, but if I stop kicking, then my legs will just sink. But I can still keep my hips up through the extension of the spine and extension of the pelvis. And again, add the kick, the legs can come up. So my kick's not necessarily moving me forward here, but it is helping to keep the legs in the slipstream of the body. Okay, stop kicking and the legs go down. I can just float. Okay, so same thing again. If I flex the spine though, look, my hips drop, my head is still down, but it's not necessarily keeping my hips up. Okay, if I change the spine and the pelvis, the hips come up, the legs didn't come up, the legs come up when I add the kick. So in slow motion, in spinal extension, add a little flutter kick. If I keep that extension, it allows me to look forward down the pool without the hips dropping, and then I can release the head back down. So that's handy if I'm sighting.
About just floating and being able to get into spinal extension and pelvic extension, even though the legs are dropping. Okay, so be aware of the difference between the hip sinking and the legs sinking. So you can be swimming and have your hips up. Your legs might be dropping down in the water, so don't let your legs sinking pull your hips down. Okay, so if you need to, working on the pendulum legs, I find very helpful in helping you move the hips. And then also, if you need to, practice some of these drills with fins. It's perfectly acceptable. Okay, and then in the meantime, keep working on your head-spine alignment in the water. And exactly what does that mean to have your head and spine aligned? It means not having a rounded spine, not having a rounded pelvis, being able to know the difference of lifting and extending to press the chest in. So just because your legs sink doesn't mean that your hips have to sink, okay? So I want to make that very clear. You can practice with the legs, doing pendulum legs to help drive the hips, practice with fin for a flutter kick, and do other things to practice to help your kick be propulsive if you want to. Spend time doing that. I do not have a very propulsive kick, but I can use my legs in this pendulum or the two-beat fashion to help drive my hips, which then helps to drive my stroke. So I don't have a kick that's going to help me go down the pool. If I'm in front float or if I was on a kickboard, it doesn't matter. I am just not really propelling myself forward. I could spend a lot of time practicing, trying to have better movement with my legs. That's going to help me propel a bit more, but I really don't want to spend my time practicing just kicking to try to get a little bit out of it. I prefer to use my time working on my pendulum legs. Not to say that I don't do flutter kick, okay? When I do a flutter kick, it is to help keep my legs from sinking, okay, not my hips, but keep my legs from sinking, and I know that it's not really helping me propel forward. So, okay, a lot said there, okay? Make sure that you have good posture in the water in order to keep your hips up. Just because your legs sink doesn't mean that your hips have to sink. So there's two distinctions there, okay? Your legs might go down, but it doesn't mean your hips have to go down, okay? If your hips go down, it usually has to do with the posture that's happening in your spine and in your pelvis.
So here's a float with flexion that's causing my hips to drop. My head is down. But if I change then to extension, the chest goes down, the hips come up. Okay, and now I'm in this nice position. I can add the kick, and the kick helps keep my legs up, but I know how to move the spine. I can look forward. I can release the head back down, and all the while the hips don't drop.
So, as always, I really encourage you to get videotaped. If you can't get videotaped in the water, then try doing it on land. Get your phone out, videotape so that you know what's going on. You might not think that your hips are dropping, then you see yourself in video and go, oh, okay, they're dropping. You may notice that your spine or your pelvis are flexed. Go in the water, practice some of the drills. You could stand in shallower water and practice cat and cow from a standing position. So getting a sense of how to move the spine and then applying it into the stroke, okay? Again, just because your legs are sinking doesn't mean your hips sink. And just because your hips sink doesn't mean that your whole posture has to be thrown off. Okay, enough said. Make sure that you go to my new website, simpleswims.com, sign up for free tips on Tuesday. I come in 2 minutes, give you some suggestions, and then also make sure that you join this YouTube channel down below. So if I produce some more stuff for you, you'll be there. And also consider buying my book, Simple Swims, Practices for Balanced, Stable Swimming. Okay, a lot of information in there. Okay, ciao for now.